Welcome to the Cooperative Extension's workshop on rangeland health and grass survey. As your agent, I'm the agent here at the Hopi tribe. My name is Susan. I work for the whole region as well. So tonight's session will be taught by two of our extension specialists, Anita Thompson and Joslyn Beard. They both are relatively new to our extension office in Arizona, but they've been doing a lot of work for a long time. And they'll tell you a little bit more about who they are. Pass it over to both Anita and Joslyn. Take it away.
So my name is Anita Thompson. I am the Assistant Area Agent in Rangeland and Livestock for Navajo, Apache, and Northern Greenlee counties. And I do cover a lot of the livestock and the rangeland, as well as I help out with some of the gardening and the horticulture, and I basically do a lot of everything. So tonight, though, we're going to focus on rangeland and on grasslands. Joslyn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Joslyn Beard. I am the Livestock Extension Specialist for the state of Arizona. My office is in Tucson, but I serve the entire state. So basically, if you guys need anything and you get a hold of Susan, Susan can get a hold of me and I can be there. So my joke is I just need about a day's notice. I might move that to 2 days notice, but I'm more than happy to help you however I can. My background is mainly beef cattle. And so I've done a lot of research and extension work talking about, cattle grazing natural resources in the Western United States on rangelands. And so I'm super excited to talk to you guys tonight about some of that. Perfect. All righty. Well, that's actually a perfect segue to what you guys were kind of talking about in terms of, understanding the plant nutrient quality. Because what we're going to discuss a little bit is matching that forage with cattle needs. Now, we're going to think about this a little backwards because we might not know, the nutrient quality of that specific forage, but I will tell you that we can we do know the nutrient need of the cow, right? Basically, animals are going to need, or these cattle are going to need 6 basic nutrients, right? It's similar nutrients that we need in our everyday life just to function. So the biggest ones that they're going to need, though, is what we refer to as crude protein. So just that protein from that plant, total digestible nutrients, or TDN. And this is going to be those energy things. So carbs, fats, stuff like that. And then, of course, minerals, right? Because minerals just help everything function correctly. Okay. So thanks to some fancy scientists many years ago, they've developed a book known as the NRC for beef nutrient requirements. And so this was done by the National Research Council. And so we do know what those cows need during specific times in their life. And so what I mean by that, basically we know the protein and energy that female needs when she's in her first month of pregnancy, when she's in her 8th month of pregnancy, when she's in her first month of nursing or lactation. And so we know those values. And so knowing those values, we can actually start making some decisions, okay? But what does that look like from a whole picture perspective, okay? So if we look at this graph, this, again, CP is crude protein. So these are actually crude protein values from a ranch in New Mexico, okay? So it's about the middle of the state. And so if we compare this blue line to those NRC requirements, or again, those nutrient requirements of the cow, we can see there's a problem. And so that problem being is that there's a issue where that protein isn't actually being met. Okay, so her requirement is here, but the forage is too low and it's not meeting her requirement. Is this a problem? Short answer is yes. Okay. Because during this time, if we're looking at, a female who's calving maybe in April or something, there's some big things happening, right? So not only are these her requirements, but she has a calf inside of her, right? So that calf is growing and developing, right, during these different times of gestation or pregnancy. And then we know during that later part of gestation, that calf is really growing in size, but also her requirements are getting higher, or her needs are getting higher, because now her body is about to expel this calf, right? She's going to actually push it out, and she has to do with lactation on top of it, right? Or nursing. And so her whole body is going wow, I need as many nutrients as I possibly can, right? So it's really important to balance these key times in the year of when we know cows need the most nutrients with when forage is also at its highest quality or has the highest nutrient value, okay? So what does that look like? Like, how can I tell if we have an issue, right? The first thing is body condition score, right? So if we're going to look at muscle and fat coverage of a cow, right, we can look at basically, is the forage providing what she needs, okay? So this is a picture of a body condition score of 5. So on that BCS or body condition score scale, we look at 1 to 9. 5 is our sweet point. That is the not too thin, not too fat. We love them at a 5. And so as you can see, this cow looks in pretty good shape, right? Can't see too many of her ribs. Her hip looks pretty good. Can't really see her spine. She looks like she's doing okay. So I know as a producer that the forage is giving her what she needs, okay? If it wasn't, we'd have some issues, right? So we'd see the cow being too thin. So this cow's at a body condition score of a 3. That's a problem because now her body goes into survival mode. Her body tells her, hey, there's not enough out there for us to stay alive. And if she has a calf, which based on this udder, I assume she has a calf on her side, the forage can barely keep us alive and that calf next to us alive. So we can't worry about next year, meaning she's not going to get pregnant for you, right? And her one job in the herd is to get pregnant so she can pay rent, right? That one job that cow has is to provide a calf for you. So we need to watch that condition score, right? So when we start to see these ribs, really see that hip bone, right? If you start to see kind of those spine bones and even that shoulder, we know we got to make some decisions, right? We know that that forage is not meeting her requirements, okay? So we can intervene. Now on the other side of that, we do have a nice little 7 here, right? So she's on kind of the fatter side and she looks good, right? She looks nice, round, smooth, okay? Now, you don't have to keep your cattle at a 7, okay? If you have the forage and the cost and are able to do that, then go for it, okay? But we don't want them too fat either because then their body goes, hey, we're too fat, we're not healthy, we're not going to have a calf for you. And so she'll also stop cycling. So it's this really kind of Goldilocks rule of you don't want them too fat, you don't want them too thin, right? But again, this is a great indication of what our forage is doing, okay? So if they're right here, perfect. We don't have too much to worry about. If they're right here, well, dang, we had a great year. Maybe we got a lot of rain. You know, who knows what they're doing out there, okay? We don't need to put out any supplementation if they're right here. We can just leave it so we can save some money because obviously she's doing pretty well on her own, right? But if they are, you know, on the thinner side, that's when we got to make some of those tougher decisions of, you know, now we got to provide her a little bit more groceries. We have to increase her caloric intake somehow, okay? So this is just one way we can see how that forage is matching or if it's matching or meeting her nutrient requirements. The second way is hair coat score. So technically, this is on a scale of 1 to 5, but basically you're looking at 2 different kind of extremes. So we can tell that if the cow is healthy based off of the status of the hair. So some questions you want to kind of ask yourself is, you know, when is that cow actually shedding her winter coat? And is she shedding it properly, right? So is she shedding it too early? Maybe there's a mineral issue. But we want them to look, especially during kind of those warmer months, really slick and shiny, right? Because that means that tells us that the forage is meeting those mineral requirements, okay? That tells me that she's doing okay. She looks pretty healthy. But if they have this rough hair coat and it's kind of brittle, or even here you can see kind of this tinge of orange, so that tells me we might have a copper issue. I'm going to have to again, you're going to have to intervene somehow. You have to make those management decisions, okay? But those are just 2 ways when you just look at the animal from the animal side, is that forage meeting their needs, okay? So big thing, and Anita did a great job of talking about sampling and stuff, but you know, we really need to know what's in the diet, okay? I can't just look out there and gauge it and understand like, oh yeah, you know, it's this % protein or this % TDN. I can't do that. We have to sample, we have to test, okay? We have to understand what's going on. So that's testing, our rangelands, but also, if you have to keep them up in a dry lot, if you have access to that, if you're wanting to maybe throw some hay out there to help alleviate some of the range stress, it's also a good idea to check some of those hay bales that you get or round bales that you might get, because again, we don't know what happened, whether if they've been sitting in a barn for 2 years, maybe they got rained on, and so again, just kind of understanding where we stand, because unless we test it, we really don't know for certain, right? And it might not be 100% accurate, but it's closer than me just guessing. Okay, so it's just a great kind of tool to use. Now, Anita did mention a lot about, forage changing and stuff. And so a lot of it is, we have this fluctuation in when that cow's going to need requirements, but also we have that fluctuation in forage quality, right? So why is it changing? Well, a lot of it is also that forage group, right? So we know that different forage groups are going to have different qualities, right? So the quality of grass is going to be different than like juniper or sagebrush, right? So it's going to be different. Focusing in on the cattle aspect, we're going to really focus in on that grass, because that's what they're going to be consuming a lot of, right? That's really what they're going to be grazing. That's their preference. That's what they want. If you have sheep or goats, we can talk about that later, but we're really going to focus in on that, the cattle aspect of it. Now, a big thing for us and trying to understand, what's really going to fluctuate here, real driving factor of this is, the type of grass that you're dealing with in terms of, is it a cool or warm season grass, right? So when is that grass going to grow? When is it going to mature? When's it going to peak, kind of a deal? And will it do it twice in a year? Will it do it once in a year? What are we kind of working with here? And so those are just, some of those things to keep in mind. All of that, again, kind of goes back to what Anita was saying. When you're going through and you're trying to identify the grasses and understand what's going on, that's a great time to do that. And so I think a good initial grasp is just to kind of understand, this cool versus warm season, and understand when you're going to see those peaks, because that's when we can start aligning some of those requirements that we were talking about. Another thing is environmental stresses. Cannot stress it enough. So drought is going to play a huge role, right? We know the lack of rain, there's not enough moisture. We have some decrease in our forage production, right? We understand we deal with stuff with erosion, right? Even overgrazing, whatever stress that environment is putting on that forage or that rangeland is going to alter that forage quality. So again, testing really does help, okay? So now it comes into, well, when's the best time to match forage with that animal, right? With that cow. I will tell you right now, it's during calving season, okay? So during calving season, or when you want her to calve, that forage quality really needs to kind of be either going to kind of its peak, give it some months, but, pretty close to that, because that lactation is going to be when she needs the most nutrients, okay? Nursing is going to have the highest energy demand on that mama. Her body is going to scream for as many calories as it can, okay? And so it's really important to kind of match when that forage is going to peak, and then when her energy need is also going to peak, okay? So it's kind of during that lactation calving time. Again, going back, you have to, understand those warm versus cool season grasses and really take advantage of those different peaks in the year, okay? Now, I know this can be a little difficult if you start thinking about, your bull situation. So if you have, the ability to select breeding season, or you have the ability, to put a bull in for like 60 days, 90 days and take it out and have a breeding season like that, you're going to backtrack and figure out when you want them to calve on that peak, kind of, again, forage peak. And then that's how you would choose your breeding season. Now, is that a 100% guarantee everything's going to be great? Not necessarily, because there has been some research that has looked at, if we shift our breeding season, right, or our calving season, can we actually increase cow performance, right? So again, cow performance, her one job, get pregnant. So if we compare two different systems here, so we have a March and May calving, again, it's paying attention to when those peaks are. We actually see that those March calvers do a little bit better than the May, okay? And this is sometimes questions I get in terms of, should we push breeding season back or anything like that, just because, you want to either had a later warm up, or there might be some issues with drought. And I will tell you right now that sometimes that's not always best, and it's because of this study here. So as you can see, these March cows have a better chance of getting pregnant compared to these Mays, right? These Mays are lower. And the reason being is energy. So as I said, lactation, highest energy demand, right? These cows are screaming for calories. They need it. So if we compare March calvers with their energy need, right? And obviously this is going to also dictate, you know, if you have a really heavy milking cow, she's going to need more than one that's like a moderate or middle of the road milking cow. Okay. So these March cows do pretty good, right? The forage is okay. So everything that's above this black line means that her requirements are kind of getting met. Anything that's below that black line means that she's in an energy deficit, or she doesn't have enough energy from the forage, and that's not good. Because again, her body's going to go into that survival mode, and she's not going to want to produce a calf for you the next year. So that's something to keep in mind. That shift in energy, so that May, so if we shift it, right, shift them to a little bit later, those cows don't have a chance, unfortunately. Some do get pregnant. However, they are fighting this huge energy issue, right? And so it's something to keep in mind. Again, you want to be able to match that forage peak and not overshoot it. So with these May cows, we've kind of overshot where that forage was. And so now they're where that forage is like really, really mature, and it doesn't have enough energy for them. So it's kind of like what Anita was talking about, where some of them have, the forage has, you know, really nutritious seeds, versus like where they might be in that growing season, they might be more nutritious. So it's, again, knowing that forage and knowing where that quality stands. Okay. So the biggest takeaways from this is just, again, understanding forage quality will change. It's not going to stay the same. And even it changes, you know, month to month, year to year, it's not going to change this. It's not going to stay the same. So it's always moving, but understanding a good, you know, kind of gauge or a good scale of where it can be. Understanding those peak times in that year, right? So that peak forage time, understanding when that's going to hit, you know, again, it could fluctuate slightly, but like understand just the timing. You know, is it going to happen this spring? Is it going to happen later in the summer? Is it going to happen in that fall? When is that peak going to happen? And then choosing a breeding season that works best for your environment. Of course, if you're able to, you know, do bulls in, bulls out situation, this is great. If you do have bulls year round, I will tell you that naturally you probably are weaning in the fall, and that's just because of the natural cycle of the cow. They tend to get pregnant in the spring, or when they have enough, you know, nutrients. Again, their body says, oh yeah, we're healthy, we can breed. And so you might be doing this already, you know, but if you do have an option to choose the breeding season, definitely choose one that works best with your forage and the environment that you're in. And then always be prepared to supplement cattle when necessary. So we talk about winter supplementation a lot. Again, if you remember from that first graph, that was really busy. We know that last 3 months of gestation or pregnancy, she's going to need some help, or she's going to need a little bit more. And then into that lactation period, she's really going to need more. So be prepared to supplement when you need it, right? If we're in a drought, supplement, you know, protein, supplement what you can. Just to kind of help her along and help her stay productive and stay in your herd, right? Because we want them to stay in our herd. We want to take care of them. We want them to have their babies. So just be prepared to make some of those management decisions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beard, Dr. Thompson. We appreciate you. We're going to be getting to know them more and more. I'll send you their contact information so you can reach out to them. Thanks, everyone. Good night.